Hello, hello, and welcome back to Scholastically Natalie, where we talk about books, writing, reading, D&D, and sometimes other things. I got caught up in the hype. I'm on to the current exploding book of the probably past week now by the time I'm getting around to this. But I wanted to do a Let's Read book review slash book talk on the memoir by Jennette McCurdy, I'm Glad My Mom Died. So, just a general warning before we get into this, because it is a bit of a rough read with triggering topics. There's going to be general discussion of emotional and sexual abuse of a minor, alcoholism, eating disorders, abusive relationships in general. Um, and the material covered in this book is, in general, going to be distressing, and it's recommended for people who are more mature. Um, I will say that when she describes a lot of this triggering content, it is worded in a way that it does not seem as awful to me. It's not Winter Girls level of extreme, but it can still be pretty distressing, and it's just a tragic story until we get to the end. Uh, so if you're not in the right headspace reading this, you might not be so great when you get done with it. Um, So, the first blurb, very short one, is a heartbreaking and hilarious memoir by iCarly and Sam and Cat star Jennette McCurdy about her struggles as a former child actor, including eating disorders, addiction, a complicated relationship with her overbearing mother, and how she retook control of her life. There is a slightly longer blurb on the inside of the book. So, Jennette McCurdy was 6 years old when she had her first acting audition. Her mother's dream was for her only daughter to become a star, and Jennette would do anything to make her mother happy. So she went along with what Mom called calorie restriction, eating little and weighing herself 5 times a day. She endured extensive at home makeovers while Mom chided, "Your eyelashes are invisible, okay? You think Dakota Fanning doesn't tint hers?" She was even showered by Mom until age 16 and was also forced to share her diaries, email, and her entire income. In I'm Glad My Mom Died, Jennette recounts all of this in unflinching details, just as she chronicles what happens when the dreams finally comes true. Cast in a new Nickelodeon series called iCarly, she is thrust into fame. Though Mom is ecstatic, emailing fan club moderators and getting on a first name basis with the paparazzi, hi Gail, Jennette is riddled with anxiety, shame, and self loathing, which manifest into eating disorders, addiction, and a series of unhealthy relationships. These issues only get worse when, soon after taking the lead in the iCarly spin-off Sam and Cat alongside Ariana Grande, her mother dies of cancer. Finally, after discovering therapy and quitting acting, Jennette embarks on recovery and decides for the first time in her life what she truly wants. Told with refreshing candor and dark humor, I'm Glad My Mom Died is an inspiring story of resilience, independence, and the joy of shampooing your own hair. Um, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I'd call it hilarious. It's written in such a way that it somehow manages to be not distressing and gripping and funny, which is honestly a testament to Jennette McCurdy's talent um, at writing. um, because she just as easily could have turned it into something like Winter Girls, and she didn't. And she made it something where she shows exactly how hard things were and how rough it was, and she manages to do it in a way that is honestly pretty amazing to write. I'll tell you more when we get to the end. So, I have selected some quotes, as usual. Here we have on chapter 5 on page 20. Even though both Grandma and Mom were baptized, they didn't go to church. I think they wanted the perk of going to heaven without doing the legwork. But then, right after Mom was diagnosed with cancer, we started attending church service. I just knew the Lord would help me get better if I was a good and faithful servant, Mom explained to me. Oh, so we started going to church when we wanted something from God? I asked. And that was honestly a really funny moment. I really enjoyed how this was written and the wit and snarkiness that young Jennette had. Uh, and it felt all the more terrible to see it swallowed up by, honestly, the hellhole that her life kind of became for a bit. Then on page 124 in chapter 35, maybe people go to church because they want things from God, and they keep going while they're wishing and yearning and longing for those things. But then maybe, once they get those things, they realize they don't need church anymore. Um, and I also liked this kind of like thought process of like rationalizing how things work and how the people around you work. And of course, the full circle that comes from the first quote to this one. Then we have in chapter 55, page 184, loving someone is vulnerable, it's sensitive, it's tender, and I get lost in them. If I love someone, I start to disappear. It's so much easier to just do googly eyes and fond memories and inside jokes for a few months, run the second things start to get real, then repeat the cycle with someone new. So this book is clearly all about self-identity. It really details the struggles of being pushed into fame and taking advantage of pretty much everyone around you at a young age. And it details the thought process of like being indoctrinated from a narcissistic mother from an extremely young age. Like Jennette didn't know anything different from how her mom was raising her and telling her, when it was kind of obvious that some of her siblings did. Um, and then seeing her figure out how to live and exist like as her own person with her own way of doing things was kind of amazing and really great to read about. Because the way this is written and looking at it writing style wise, Jennette was absolutely brilliant in how she wrote this. Not in the least because of the way she expressed herself. She wrote all of it in first person, which I wasn't expecting. Um, and from like a current perspective of her younger self, all the way up to uh, before this came out. And I think that was an extremely smart choice. She got to frame how she thought and her perspective from like a young age and like how her mother was really, really well. Um, and she also managed to do something that I think is absolutely dynamic planning on her part and completely brilliant in that you don't know anything about anyone in her life. You don't know. Like, I obviously, okay, I never watched iCarly. I never watched Sam and Cat. Um, I didn't really know that much about Jennette McCurdy. The most I know about her is from Quentin Review's extremely long series about iCarly. That's it. Um, so I wouldn't know any of her relatives if they smacked me across the face. So, like, for me, I don't see a need to push any further into figuring out who any of the people in her book are. But in such a way, she gives the details and the context of their relationship and how she as a person feels about them and their interactions with each other. But it's never anything where you can identify them or there's any scandals that you can hold against them or like there's no way to see it except I felt like this at this time. Because one thing my coworker brought up without having brought the book to me is that she was like, "Oh, well, what's the big deal with Ariana Grande?" And one, it's a tiny part of the book, and two, there's absolutely nothing that Jennette put in the book that is rude towards Ariana in any way. I mean, it basically boils down to, hey, I was going through a lot. I felt like garbage. Nickelodeon was being so kind to her in what they would let her do and accommodate her with when they wouldn't do that for me. And it absolutely ate me. And like, that is so different from like how I've seen that sort of stuff portrayed in the media. Um, and honestly, trying to find just like a picture of the book to put in here. When I was like looking at images, it was a bunch of like titles and like pictures from articles, and they were all like, "Oh, Ariana Grande in this book," and I'm like, she mentions her like once. Admittedly, the end note, maybe she means Ariana Grande by Ari, but like honestly, that's up to them to tell us if they want to, if they don't want to. I was far more interested in seeing her unlearn her really toxic thought process that her mother taught to her, and seeing her just find the strength and motivation and determination to just rip herself out of the hole that she was basically pushed into. Um, so yeah, I thought this book was absolutely gripping and kind of amazing. Um, I don't recommend it if you're struggling with any of the topics that this covers right now. But if you're somebody who's pretty well recovered from maybe narcissistic parent, wants to understand how narcissistic parents work, want to just see somebody have hope and like fight through things and get a better life for themselves, this is a great book for it. It's a short read for me at least. uh, there's no complicated vocabulary. Um, the way Jennette expresses her feelings and opinions and experiences is captivating and so well done. Uh, I can see why this blew up beyond it just being a famous person. Like it, it's amazing. It's really well done, and like just seeing that complex mix of emotions, like I can't help but feel for Jennette with having to both hate and love someone at the same time, uh, and having so much of like your youth stolen. Like, how do you even be a person after that? And it's so impressive that she's become like such a good person out of that, and like have the ability to put herself out there still. Um, so yeah, this is probably going to be a brief, hopefully, book talk, because all I can say is it's great. Uh, I enjoyed reading it, and it didn't fail to interest me in any spot at all, ever. Um, so thanks for watching. Sorry that I'm still kind of behind with stuff. Um, and I will see you again in the next one. Scholastically Natalie is out.